Testing.
Okay, guys, we are live here with Quantum Leap, and we have a special guest here, Stu Sweetow, who's a video producer here in the East Bay area and beyond. And first, want to do a quick check-in with my co-host, Cory and I. Cory, welcome back from vacation. I know you've been back for a little bit now. I still see that drip on the pictures from Disneyland. Looks like you had a good time.
Yeah, we had a great time, and fun taking a 2.5-year-old to Disneyland and seeing it through their eyes for their first time. It's pretty amazing.
Good. What's new with business? Yeah, I heard you talking to Stu about a new setup for a live production.
Well, we're trying out different types of broadcasting services because we want to do more video podcasts. I mean, it's similar to what you're doing, and Zoom is one option, but we also like we've been doing, what is that? I don't remember the name of it. There's so many different ones out there. Gail wanted me to try out Riverside, but for me to work and have this, I need a virtual background. I have a green screen, but it's unwieldy. So, and a lot of these softwares don't use green screens. Zoom does such a great job on everything, but and as videographers, you understand the problems here. So what I want to do is create a virtual green screen and then use OBS Studio to broadcast. So actually right now I'm using NVIDIA, which has a broadcast tool to virtualize my background, and it has an image just like Zoom does. And then I'm running it through OBS, which is going to Zoom. So there's like this multi-layer camera system going on. But now I could put things up and around me. And so when I'm doing presentations, I can have a bit of, I can get really sophisticated with my presentations, which is what people are starting to look for with presentations online.
Yeah, great. And we actually have a master of live streaming right here too. I've actually been working on a lot of live stream stuff as well, and it is a pretty tough nut to crack, so to speak. But we're going to ask Stu about that, but let's save that for a little bit later in the broadcast, because Stu actually does some great live streaming productions. So, I'm just going to wave my check in due to some background noise here, and get right to Stu. Well, Stu, if you don't mind, just telling us how you are and kind of who you are, for those who may not know what you do here in the Bay Area.
Okay, well, I'm feeling great, and I have a company called Audiovisual Consultants. We do video production and live streaming, and video editing, and help people with virtual video conferences too.
Beautiful. And that book behind you, which I mentioned in the intro, is Corporate Video Production. So Stu is really a master of corporate video production, and really all things production for nonprofits, small business, big business, chambers of commerce, and he's done a lot of great events around the Bay Area. And that's kind of my testimonial. But if you don't mind just telling us kind of how you got into the field, and what makes you unique as a videographer, or you're really a video producer, and that you do the full production pipeline as well.
Well, I got into it in college. A friend had a movie camera, and we started making movies, and the bug bit. I changed everything that I was doing in college, took whatever courses I could take in cinematography and photography. Won first prize in the school's film festival as a senior, which helped me get a job right out of college as an audiovisual specialist. I worked at a few places, and then eventually started my own business, Audiovisual Consultants. One of the things that I was doing at that time was teaching classes in video production. I was actually using that to build up clientele. Later on, UC Berkeley hired me to teach classes in video production. And then, later on, I started writing for some of the video magazines, which led to the publisher Focal Press contacting me about writing the book Corporate Video Production, which is in its second edition now.
Great. And I know we actually had a couple of bonus questions too, but I first wanted to turn it over to Cory for a few questions, and then I'm going to return to some of these more kind of insider baseball video questions.
Oh yeah, well, I always love the question, who is your ideal client? I mean, there's so many different ways of video production these days, and I was talking a little bit about self-production, which works well for some things, but definitely when we want to be more professional, that's when we hire the professional. So who do you really like to work with?
All right, I like to work with small businesses that recognize the value of digital media and have a story to tell. We work with startups and technology companies to help showcase their products and services. And I really like working with nonprofits to make like a documentary style video. These could be short documentaries, maybe 10 or 20 minutes, or an hour-long documentary that helps tell their story.
And what kind of documentary would you be looking for? That's rather interesting. So, like, can you give an example of one that you've done?
Sure. We worked with a Oakland organization called A Safe Place, which is a domestic violence, reduction organization. And we interviewed several people, staffers and, recipients and volunteers, and put it all together to tell a story about just how the whole area of domestic violence prevention has changed over the years. This is for their 35th anniversary. And things have changed so much now that they really are reaching out to families and including the whole families with counseling. And they transformed the court systems also so that people can get help, right away. So it's a fascinating story. And, so helping organizations tell their stories, especially a nonprofit that's doing some good in the world, is my mission.
Nice. All right. Yeah, that just is very curious about that. I'm going to hand it back over to David.
Okay, great. And I'm going to get into a bonus question here because I actually thought about it when I was writing the promo for this event. I just really see there's this huge shift towards video recently, and I know you've produced what I would call them flagship videos, or really it's really an impactful video that tells the story of that organization. It's something that sticks with somebody, and I know you did one of these for that organization that was looking at women in the workplace in Silicon Valley, and it's really kind of a it tells the story of that organization. I just wanted to get your thoughts on the importance of video now out there in this post-COVID landscape, and why companies really need videos like that, as well as the value of those.
All right. Well, we like to look at images of other people, and that's a way to connect with your audience, to show people talking about their stories. And that's one of the ways that documentary filmmaking is done. That particular video that you spoke about had to do with this woman, Ellen Pao, in Silicon Valley, who was getting cast out of the good old boys club of venture capital firms. And we told the story really without ever using one of our cameras. We got some of their TV interview footage, but we got just lots of photos and graphics. We wrote a script. We hired a professional narrator, put it all together with just lots of imagery, so that the viewer is really just maybe a 5-minute video, but that the viewer really hears what the problem is, gets more in depth into what was going on, and then leaves with the hope that, yes, there is a possibility for women and really everybody to have just more opportunities in the corporate workplace.
Yeah, it was just a beautiful piece. And I know they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So it's hard to explain the power of those images and putting it all together. But I really saw that in that piece and a number of the other pieces that you do. And I did want to just kind of back up a little bit and just ask you about this process of developing, creating a video. So say an nonprofit out there or an organization wants to tell their story. Where do you get started with that?
All right. What I do is we have, several meetings. Some of them are online, some of them are in person. And I have actually just a whole form that I go through, and I ask them, what is your objective? What is there a problem that you're trying to solve? Who is your audience? What do you want the audience to do after viewing the video? So we keep all these things in mind. And then the first document that we would produce is what's called in the television industry as a treatment, which some people call a storyboard, which really is a narrative outline with as much visual description as possible. And once the client approves the treatment, then we go to write the script. Now, if there's lots of interviews, we don't really have to write every word that people are going to be saying, but we would write it in the questions and what we consider to be, the appropriate answers. And then if there's going to be a voiceover narration, or if there's going to be some stock footage or imagery, we include all of that in our script so that we have, a document that we could work with, like a blueprint for building a house. And then when we shoot on location, it's pretty simple. We just look at our script and it's telling us what to do. And then we send everything over to the editor, who does some magic and puts it all together into a final video. One of the things that we're doing now is encouraging our clients to take this longer video and cutting it down into several modules. Some could be even as short as a minute, and use those on social media to help promote the longer video that they would have on their website.
Great. And there's a lot there. And, obviously I love working in the video industry as well. And I really learned a lot of this stuff from your book. And I feel like almost everybody who does marketing should really read that book, because it's really this process of videos, everything to get what you want. And it's just a hugely invaluable thing when you actually end up with that finished product. But it really takes somebody who has a lot of experience with that process. And you're one of the few people I know out there who does on corporate video. There's tons of books written on, how to write the next Star Wars or, a drama, but really a lot of those same techniques can be used to generate that same type of result for companies and businesses and causes. And that's what I think we need more of out there in the world so there's just my 2 cents on that. And I really appreciate so much of what you teach in that book. And I just encourage any marketers out there to pick up that copy and understand that process, because then you really see how to make the magic happen. How do you recommend getting started drafting a script? I really see the script as such a key starting point. But a lot of people, they don't know that the script's the first step. But I guess you actually went to the goals first before you even get to the script. So maybe talk about the pre-script phase, and then how do you get to that script, that initial script?
All right. Well, one of the things, in addition to coming up with the outline or treatment, is to figure out what are the visuals that are available, what are the visuals that we might be able to obtain, such as stock footage or photographs, that would have an impact on the viewer. And we want to keep this in mind, because with every visual element, we want to be able to help tell the story and make it impactful. So one of the things I really stress with script writing is the visuals. Certainly the writing itself, when you're writing for a narration, there's a little different type of writing. You're writing for the spoken word as opposed to the written word. So you can put in a phrase instead of a whole sentence, or you could repeat yourself, or you could say things in different ways to add emphasis to them. So so script writing is a little different than just writing for print.
Yeah, and a little anecdote, I actually send every new client I get a little copy of that one of the pages of how to write a script out of your book. It's just a photograph that I took, because you really need to have the words and the images together. And I often I don't always do that, because I actually find you have to be kind of more advanced at video to come up with those images yourself. So often they can write the words, but it's hard to come up with those images. And I think that's a key part where I see that you excel, and people who have a lot of experience excel in video. I did want to get over to live streaming, and you offer really a full slate of live stream services. You're one of the top producers in the East Bay area, producing things for, the city of Oakland and other major nonprofits. But what are some tips for a live stream, and maybe some mistakes that you see out there also?
Okay. Well, I'm really excited to share with you, because last Saturday we did a live stream at Stanford for an organization called Decision Education Foundation. They're an educational organization that works with high school kids. And we visited the faculty club where this was taking place probably a month ahead of time to test the Wi-Fi. We go in there hours ahead of time, and we run a long cable, because we don't really use the Wi-Fi. We use what's called the Ethernet. It's direct wired, and it's a lot more reliable than Wi-Fi. So what we did on Saturday morning, we ran a long cable from where the network equipment was back to where our cameras. We had 3 cameras. We actually had like 2 different audio video switchers. One was working with Zoom exclusively. The other was switching between the 3 cameras and slides on the laptop computer from the client. So we put all these elements together. We were able to allow participants via Zoom to be able to make their presentations. One was in Germany, another one, it was her son's birthday, so she didn't want to attend. So so we had this opportunity to make what we call a hybrid conference. It was both a Zoom conference that was transmitted on Zoom for people to watch, but it also was an opportunity to give people who were not able to attend but who wanted to speak, that opportunity. One of the techniques that we used, which I see that you just turned on, is a technique called spotlighting, which is something that Zoom has, which allows you to only show the presenter, so that if there's a whole bunch of people on Zoom and they're watching in the grid pattern or something like that, this basically makes it more like television. They just have a full screen of what the presenter is saying, and then their microphones and cameras are turned off. So it's really very much like watching television.
Beautiful. And it really comes down to those small details like that if you leave everybody on grid when you could be on full screen, it's so much more powerful to have that person full screen. So, I see a lot of those kind of finer points in your videos that, I like how he did that. One, you get such a clean feed out of there. It doesn't look, like a Zoom, you're using you have that great connection. And then you also have a good shot too. A lot of people I see make a mistake with a shot if you have distracting things in the shot. And from what I understand, you can actually coach some people on, maybe say they're doing a business meeting, it's virtual. Do you coach them on that or produce those type of meetings too?
Yeah, well, let me tell you a little story since we're in the storytelling business. COVID struck, a year and a half ago or something like that. So every election, we've been working with the Oakland League of Women Voters and making videos for them. And of course, each election we have a little bit better budget. And this election comes around and said, we really can't make the videos because we have to stay in, home. So I said, let's do it virtually. And so what I did is I coached their volunteers to use their smartphones, not the Zoom video platform, which frankly is a little bit lower quality. Smartphones have gotten just incredibly high quality. So I coached them to raise the phone or the camera to eye level so they're not looking down at it, to flood the room with lights, or just do it during the day and aim your face at a window so you get lots of light, and get in close, I'm using a microphone, and I have taught people how to use their microphones, but if they get in close enough to a smartphone, it works. And then they send me the footage, and then I edit in some graphics. Usually I do a little audio work, and sometimes a little video work to maybe do some color correction, and then put it all together as a finished video that then they can send. Let's say they're having their Zoom conference, they could play back that pre-recorded video along with slides and other images, so that they don't have the pressure of having to do it live and getting it right, doing it live. So these are just some of the options for doing virtual conferences.
Great. I just had a quick comment, and I wanted to turn back to Cory. I really see that the importance is having somebody who knows about the entire setup, because if you start, for example, using a better camera on a Zoom meeting, you're actually going to probably have to have some people, Zoom is able to blur out certain things, which kind of works good, but you really need a setup that works best for each thing. And I think looking at people, they don't know how to set that up, and that's really where it begins with succeeding on video. Would you agree with that?
Well, yeah, there's two ways of doing it. We were talking earlier about helping people use their own devices, and I think the smartphones are very good. On the other hand, when we use a professional camera, we have a lot more control over color and focus, and the lenses are just so much better. And then, of course, we'll use a microphone. So yeah, with pro gear, you're able to get, just much better quality. But, we want people to be able to use this amazing video medium with whatever resources they have. So if they want to do it themselves, I am available. Like I said, I used to teach classes in video. So I am happy and eager to, show people what they could do with their equipment.
Yeah, and Cory and I actually talk about a lot of this stuff too, because for me, there's such a balance between, especially if you don't have enough people on production, between the ease and the ability to do it, between getting that higher quality. So if you don't have the team to do it, it can be challenging, So, but Cory, how's your experience been with some of your video production, or do you have any questions for Stu about the live streaming stuff?
I need to get better at video production. Well, we're trying to improve it all the time, and but we're doing mostly classes and things like that, and not a lot of professional quality video production, which is where it helps to have somebody. I mean, I've worked with David many times in the past, but I'm more curious about, and just one thing I would say, get a microphone. No matter what you do, get a microphone, because laptop microphones stink. They're too tiny, and they just take in a lot of echo, and people think they can be heard. But Stu, you're getting older, I'm getting older, David, you're not quite there yet. But as our ears start to go, we can't hear those tones, and laptop microphones don't do well with the tones. So a microphone like Stu has, or one of those ones that is a really good pickup, will help with, especially with an older audience. But aside from that, Stu, what would you say are some of the trends that we're probably likely to see over the next year or two, given that things are still hybridizing online and in person?
Yeah, well, hybridizing is a good word. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's hard to know what's going to happen in the future, but I think hybrid might be what we're going to see more of, because we have been doing conference videos for years and years, and in the past they would pack as many people into an auditorium they possibly can. Now, for example, with the one that we did on Saturday at the faculty club, they had people in pods, which were basically tables, banquet tables, that were separated, probably a good 6 feet, apart. So who knows what's going to happen, if we're going to get any more of these Greek letters, or, of the alphabets with more variants as things go on. But either way, it gives people options. So whether there's a pandemic going on, or people just don't want to take the time to fly in from Germany to give a presentation, it allows people to participate and even give their presentations by using Zoom or some of these other online platforms. So I think they're going to be here to stay.
Yeah, we just saw a presentation last week from somebody who's a keynote speaker, and he's famous for being very physical on stage. And so he shows how he uses, all these tools. And he has a very sophisticated home production environment with a producer and, videographer and so on, and is able to really show that physicality and present anywhere in the world now.
Great. I'll end with another bonus question here. Do you have any tips for live speakers presenting on Zoom? And I know I want to kick this to Cory too, because I, for example, saw a keynote speaker this event I'm helping produce. He actually stands up and stands a little back, and I think that makes a big impact too. So I don't know if you guys have seen any of the innovation out there that what people might consider for that type of presentation.
Yeah, well, standing probably, enables our lungs to fill up with a little bit more air. Singers will usually stand when they sing. One thing that I really cannot emphasize enough is making eye contact with that camera on your screen. On my screen, it's a little green dot. It might have a white dot on some other screens, but that's important to try to make eye contact, because it's as if you're with a person live. If you're looking them in the eyes, you have a lot more influence, a lot more connection with them. It's a little weird, looking at a camera lens, but watch TV news, you'll see that the pros have learned how to focus their attention on the camera. There's a few other things, like if you're wearing glasses, you need to be careful with the lighting, because sometimes the lights will reflect off of glasses. You want to be careful with what kind of backgrounds you have. You want to make sure that your kids don't all of a sudden run in, or a cat walks across your laptop and the tail might cover up the camera lens. There's all sorts of things like that that's they're really hilarious. Actually, sometimes they probably make some of these programs a lot more interesting. But these are just all things to consider when producing online.
Yeah, I'll be the first to admit I don't look at the camera enough, and that is a huge thing, because it's so arbitrary looking at a spot on a computer screen. It's just not natural. Cory, do you have anything that you wanted to add, some tips there? And then we're gonna
I'm gonna echo what you said, which is standing when you speak, because it opens up the diaphragm. And it also allows you to move your hands more. So that's one of the things and this is big in public speaking, is having your hands, speaking, do the Italian thing, because the more movement you have, the better, even though you get all these fun artifacts. And so that's the virtual green screen. Yay. But now, because you don't normally have a lot of space and nobody can see below a certain level, you kind of got to bring your hands up and talk from here. So for public speaking, using your hands is very helpful. People respond to that. It's some physicality that brings to the presentation. Don't necessarily have to do it, when talking like this, but in a presentation it helps. So that's why it also helps to stand. And then, as Stu said, position the camera. I have a problem with my camera where it's actually kind of up here. And so for me to talk to you and look in the camera, I kind of got to look up. But when I'm doing a presentation, I will actually hang the camera in the middle of my giant screen so that I can look right at it. And if I need to work off notes, which I sometimes do, the notes will actually be right next to the camera. So I never have to look away to read, but it's always kind of right there. So it takes a bit of time. Practice is just really what it comes down to. If you're going to do a presentation and you want to appear professional, practice is it. Get it all set up and ready. Great work.
Yeah, I always admire how you always look right into the camera, and you're always in the perfect spot too. Well, we're going to leave it there for today. Thanks for coming on, Stu. We'll put the links. Do send me that link to that video again of that woman with that powerful story from Silicon Valley. It's such a beautiful piece and illustration of the great work that you do. And we look forward to keeping in touch and having you back sometime, maybe early in 2022.
Well, thanks for having me. And it's good to see you, Cory, too.
Good to see you.
Great. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We'll see you for the second half of Quantum Leap in just a few minutes.